Hey there. Thank you so much. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. I'm looking forward to what you have to say. I always enjoy it.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right, floor is yours.
All right. Hey, everybody. How are you doing today? I just got back from a conference this weekend where I could see all the faces, and a lot of you don't even have your video on. So I'm going to speak to your names unless I can see your faces too. So if you want to come on and wave to me, I always enjoy that as well. Hope all of you are having a good Monday and waking up to learn some good information. Before I get started talking about all the things I wanted to share, I wanted to thank the hosts of this conference for putting this on every year to try to bring great information to the public. And I also want to thank all of you that are listening, because I'm sure there's a lot you could be doing right now besides hanging out and watching this Zoom. But you're doing it because you want to be better, or because you want your life to be better. Oh, I'm saying, oh, they won't let you put your cameras on? Okay, well, I'm just going to try to feel your presence through your names. Thanks for letting me know, JW. Maybe it's too much, you'll overload the system. That's all right. So before I get started talking to you about autoimmune disease and optimizing your own immune health, I'd like to introduce myself a little bit. Now, I've been doing this for a bit, so a lot of you may already know me, but there's always a few that don't, and the rest of you, you can do along with me. How's that? So before I was a doctor or an author or in documentaries and all the wild things I've been able to do in all of the years I've been doing it, I was a patient. Before I got this nifty white coat, I was wearing the hospital gown that was, drafty in the back. And that was from a young age. I was sick since I was, well, you start with the migraine since 14 years old. By 16, I had arthritis, plus the migraines where I vomit for days, rashes across my face, and I was really sick, really sick. By the time I got to the doctor, well, my mom had been taking me to the doctor. I have a great mom, and whenever I said I was in pain, she would bring me, but they couldn't find anything. I had MRIs for the migraines. I went to the doctor. They ran blood tests when I would, have joint pain, and they couldn't figure it out. Maybe it's playing volleyball. Maybe it's growing pains, but they couldn't figure it out. But one day I was especially sick. I'd been out at the pool all day with my friend, and I came home and I had a terrible migraine and I was vomiting from the pain. And when I came out of the bathroom from vomiting, the rash on my face was so bright red. And I just kind of collapsed in the chair in the kitchen. And my dad looked at me and went, "Whoa, something's really wrong." And they called my family doctor again. And she said, "Come to the ER. Let's see what's going on." So I went to the ER, and when she saw me that day, when she saw the rash and saw the pain I was in, she realized what it must be. And she ran all the tests and came to us and said, "Actually, your daughter has something called lupus." Now, nowadays, it's a more common diagnosis, right? I mean, in terms of people know what it is. When I was 16, this was, a little math, carry the one, 32 years ago. And 32 years ago, we didn't know anyone with lupus. No one was talking about lupus. And so, it wasn't just, it wasn't something people knew about as much. Two, it wasn't as common. As I'm about to share with you, autoimmune disease rates have skyrocketed over the past 40 years, right in the time when I've been dealing with it. And I'm looking at the chat right now when many of you have been dealing with it. But back then, we didn't know much about it. All my mom knew was we had one aunt through marriage who had it, not even genetically related. And she was really sick. She died. So my mom was like, "No, you don't get to say that. I've been coming to you. We've done all the tests. You don't get to suddenly say she has lupus. That's not how this works." But sure enough, the tests showed that I had lupus. And lupus is an autoimmune disease where your immune system, instead of fighting the battles against viruses and bacteria and dealing with injuries, it starts finding parts of your own body and attacking those. And there are different types of autoimmune diseases. They're usually named by what area of the body they attack, right? So if you have rheumatoid arthritis, it's mainly the joints, although you can also have things like extreme fatigue. If it is Hashimotos, it's attacking your thyroid. If it is multiple sclerosis, then attacking your nervous system, right? So there's many different kinds. Now, lupus, she's a beast. She can attack anything. So with lupus, it can attack your heart, your brain, your lungs, very commonly the kidneys, as well as arthritis, as well as your skin. And so lupus can sometimes be difficult to diagnose because it can show up in many different ways, but also very dangerous because it can attack your different organs. And at the time I was diagnosed, what they found was I actually already had kidney failure, and I didn't even know it. I always like to say, you know, that as painful as lupus was in all the rest of my body, kidney failure was absolutely painless. I didn't feel a thing. So, you know, sometimes the things that are the most deadly are also, you know, the most sneaky about it. I never knew that I had kidney failure. When we came in, my blood pressure was through the roof and my tests looked really bad. And 2 days later, there I am getting a kidney biopsy. When we went to see the nephrologist, the kidney doctor, a couple of days later to talk about my test results, he was really direct. I think partially because he was a fellow New Yorker, and even though we were all in Pennsylvania, we all speak to each other in a certain way, very direct to the point, and also because he really needed us to understand how serious what I was going through was. And what he said was, you have the most aggressive form of what we call lupus nephritis, lupus in the kidneys. It's called membranoproliferative. Say that 3 times fast. And this type of lupus in the kidneys progresses so quickly that there's a good chance you only have 6 months left. Like 6 months left for what, right? He said 6 months left to live before your kidneys are gone. And if you're lucky, dialysis will be your option. And if you're not lucky, you won't make it. And I'm guessing a good amount of you who are here right now taking the time to learn about health are also dealing with disease, right? And know how scary it is to be sitting across from someone wearing a white coat telling you that you have some terrifying disease, incurable disease, and not having much hope for you. It is a terrifying thing. And I hope any of you who are dealing with that, one, that you do have hope, and that's why you're here, because you can see I made it, right? And I believe you can too. But also that you have support. I was so blessed to have an incredible family behind me. At the time I got my diagnosis, my grandmother and my mother were in the room with me. I was just talking backstage here at the conference about my grandmother. She lived to 99. She's an incredible human being, my hero. And she was there at that meeting with the nephrologist with me and with my mother. And my grandmother was the most joyful person I've ever known, and also the toughest. Everyone in my family agrees I have her personality completely. She was just the coolest, happiest person. But man, she was tough. And I never even saw her cry when my grandfather died. And that was her soulmate. They survived the war together. They were both Holocaust survivors. But that night was the night I saw her cry. And she didn't just cry. She was on her knees, just begging God to take her and let me live, that she'd lived long enough and she needed me to be okay. And thankfully, we didn't have to make that trade. But I had incredible family support. And after that day, it was never spoken of again that I wouldn't make it. Quite the opposite. It was, all right, you've got a lot of hopes and dreams. You're a smart girl. You're going to do a lot in this world. You just got to beat this lupus thing, and we're going to just do that, right? But in the meantime, you got tests to take. I was in all AP classes. You know, I had dreams to go to Carnegie Mellon, which is a science school, and become a scientist or a doctor. I wasn't sure, and all these things, but I had big dreams. And my family was like, and you will accomplish them all. We just got to figure out what we need to do to get through this disease, but that's not who you are. That's just something you got to get through. And all of us have things we have to get through, don't we? And it's hard to argue with a Holocaust survivor. You know, I mean, when she was 16, she was in a prison camp, my grandmother. When I was 16, I lived in a nice home with my family. I went to a great school and had doctors and a hospital taking care of me. Hands down, I had it better. And if she could get through what she had with joy and hope and love, I could too. And so that's how we dealt with this. Now, my nephrologist did have an option for us when he gave us that like 6 months, if you're lucky. There is another option. It's an experimental treatment. And we are hopeful that it can actually save people with lupus nephritis, that it could save kidneys. And when you're faced with those options, dialysis, death, or experimental treatment, as much as none of us want to be an experiment, it was an easy choice. I said, yeah, let's do it. Let's do whatever this thing is. And the experiment at the time, which is now a common treatment, is using chemotherapy. Now, chemotherapy is used for what, guys? You can interact with me in the chat. I see your comments, right? So chemotherapy is used for cancer, right? Yep, exactly. See, thanks, Annette. So cancer treatments, when we use chemotherapy in cancer, the goal of it, right, is that it will poison the cells that grows the fastest. And the fastest growing cells are your hair, nails, and cancer. Right? That's why people who get chemotherapy also lose their hair. It poisons the cells that grow the fastest, right? So why would you use that in lupus? Because the side effect of chemotherapy is it suppresses the immune system. It kills the immune cells off. And that's why before COVID even happened, if you saw someone wearing a mask, why? They were getting chemotherapy. Because people who are getting chemotherapy can die from a flu that most of us might just have some sniffles and move on with our life. They have no immune system. So the thought was, if lupus is a disease where your immune system is the one that's killing you, if we shut the immune system off, your body can have a break and recover. And the hope is the kidneys can recover, because all of our organs are actually programmed to heal. They can repair damage to themselves as long as we get there in time, right? So that was the hope and the dream of it. And I was one of the first people that they were experimenting on with this. So all of you who have had help from chemotherapy for lupus nephritis, I was one of those test subjects. Now, at the time, they didn't know how much to use for the dose or how long to give it. Nowadays, people will get it for maybe 4 treatments, maybe a couple months. I had it for 2 years straight. So for 2 years, 16 to 18, the rest of my high school experience, I took 7 pills a day. I took high doses of steroids, 60 milligrams of steroids a day for years. I took hormone suppression pills because they were trying to suppress the rest of my puberty. The chemotherapy can also cause things like ovarian cancer and sterility. It can make you infertile. So they were trying to protect me as much as possible. And yes, it's scary to do something that can create cancer later, but you got to deal with the thing in front of you, right? In the moment, it was time to save kidneys. I took medicines for side effects for my other medicines. So I had 7 pills a day that I swallowed, and then I had my chemotherapy on top of it. And I took my AP classes and I sang in the choir. I volunteered at the hospital. I did whatever I could to have a normal life. And what I have found, for those of you who are sick right now, is the most important thing you can do to get through illness is to remember to also live your life. A lot of times the people I help, and I've helped people all over the world at this point, reverse what should be incurable diseases. And I've done it successfully over and over again, thousands of times at this point, which is just amazing for me. But a lot of the folks that I see, and yes, Nancy, even with MS, what I see is that people often put their life on hold, saying, well, when I get better, I'll get back to my hobbies. When I get better, I'll get back to living my life. And they lose everything in the meantime. And then they become depressed. And when you become depressed, you become more inflamed, which actually makes your diseases worse, whether it's cancer or MS or rheumatoid arthritis or lupus. And that's why, my second book is all about how you can emotionally be in a state of healing as well. But I think what saved me through those years, besides great doctors and intense but effective medications for me, was that mindset. I remained in a space of feeling lucky because, again, my grandparents had it worse and I was still here. I let myself feel lucky. I was loved and I had purpose. I might have a disease that could limit my lifespan, but I was going to live it as big as I could. I was going to learn, I was going to achieve, I was going to love, I was going to celebrate for whatever time I have. And I hope all of you remember to do that too. So I did survive it. it did work for me. I went into a remission. It took 2 years to get remission because every time they tried to stop the chemotherapy, my kidneys would start to tank again. But after 2 years of these treatments, I finally became stable, and they called it a remission. A remission in autoimmune disease does not mean you don't have it. All of my lab tests proved that I had lupus. In fact, I had to get lab tests every month for many, many years, over a decade, because everyone was terrified that if they stopped looking, I was going to do something, get sick again, which I did from time to time. But I was considered in remission because my kidneys were stable. There was still protein in my urine, which is a sign of damage to the kidney, but I was told I would have that forever. But they were no longer continuing to fail. And so I could stop the chemotherapy and just continue on with things like steroids. And they were able to stop the hormone treatment. So I finally was able to get my period when I was almost 19 years old and continue developing as a normal woman at that point. And I was really just so happy because I stopped that chemotherapy 2 weeks before I went to college. And not only did I get into Carnegie Mellon, I got a scholarship for being in the top 10 of my class in high school. And in Carnegie Mellon, I went on to do genetic research in neurobiology and studied the brain and neurotransmitters and the different ways that our brain chemically becomes happy was one of my focuses, as well as leukemia and eye development and all sorts of things like that. And I graduated with honors from Carnegie Mellon because of the genetic research, which I helped my lab publish, and then went on to medical school. Now, medical school, I did get sick again because when you have autoimmune disease, one of the things they tell you is make sure you always get enough rest and avoid stress. So medical school, not quite the best path. But again, I was never going to let anything stop me from achieving my dreams. You can't. I'm a force of nature. If you say no, through the front door, I'm going to find a window. I'm going to dig a hole under the building, but I'm going to go forward with my dreams. And I hope you are all as tenacious as that as well, because no one else can decide how you live your life, right? But it did make me sick. Working sometimes 100-hour shifts or 100-hour shifts, 100 hours a week. Back then, we didn't have laws in place to protect interns and residents. Now they have a limit, I think, of 80 hours a week, but that limiter wasn't in place back in the olden days when I was in school. And I did get sick again with lupus. My kidneys did not get affected that time, but instead I started forming blood clots and I started having mini strokes. I'd be walking through the hospital rounding on patients, and suddenly the world would break into two and I'd have to hold onto a wall and wait for the world to come back together again. And then I'd move on to see the next patient. And so when I was diagnosed there, I had to then go on to take blood thinners every day, they said, for the rest of your life. And at that point, I did finally understand my disease fully. I feel very grateful that we didn't have the internet when I had lupus. My son Solomon says that I was born in the dark ages because we didn't have any Wi-Fi. But yes, there was no internet, there was no Google, there was no email until I was in college. So I really only knew what my doctors told me or what I chose to read about. My mom got me one book about lupus once, and I started reading it and found it depressing and chucked it. So I didn't want any book to tell me what I had or who I could be. And so I just let it go. But as a doctor, I had to learn this information. And so when the blood clots formed, I actually knew very well what I had. And I think that was the most scared I ever was with my health. And, you know, my doctors had the big talk with me, and I would literally round on patients, then go see my doctor in the same hospital, go get my meds, come back out, go see patients. And at this point, they, really talked to me. Listen, you're going to have to take these blood thinners forever. I had to take the injectable form of it. And, you can never have children because with the blood clots and the kidney failure, that's just not something that'd be safe for you. And it was very clear that I was on my way to becoming disabled, which I was like, I can be disabled and be a doctor as long as I have my brain. And the blood clots scared the crap out of me because I'd made peace with, perhaps I'd be in a wheelchair at some point from the pain in the joints, but that scared me. But after mourning it, I took 2 weeks to cry about it and lean into my friends and family. And then I went, I'm still here. Lupus still didn't win, and I'm going to keep going. And I was only months away from achieving my dream of becoming a doctor. And I felt grateful. And so I went back to my state of joy and gratitude. And I'm going to share some slides with you now to show you a bit more about my journey here. Let me get my screen set up here. Okay, there we go. So I wanted to share with you here, first of all, this is my grandmother. And here I am graduating medical school. You can actually see, compared to now, you can see how puffy my cheeks are. That's when you take steroids, a prednisone, it gives you these chipmunk cheeks. So you can see I definitely still had that. But my grandmother not only didn't go, she was there for my med school graduation, happy as a clam, as my other grandmother, my dad's mother, my parents. So that was really exciting that I continued on through that. But the coolest thing that happened to me that changed my life forever was actually falling in love. Many of you might already know my husband, Thomas Tadlock. He is the coolest, most amazing person on the planet. We've been together 20 years and I still kiss him the same way like that. He is just, oh, I wake up every day just so excited to see that beautiful face. And we fell in love really quickly. This was taken, actually, I had gotten my dream for my residency program at UCLA Harbor. So that is a part of the UCLA program where you can work with the uninsured and the homeless. And my dream's always been to help those that everybody else ignores, and the people who are unseen by the world. And that's really what I thought I'd be doing, y'all. I didn't think I'd be, in movies and on magazine covers. I just wanted to help the homeless. That was my goal. But life had other plans for me. But this man loved me as a sick person. And even when I told him that I could never have children and he would take care of me when I became disabled, he stubbornly said he would rather have a short life with me than a lifetime with anyone else. And he wanted to marry me anyway. And so I said, yes, please then, because again, I'm not gonna say no to life. And he helped me move all my stuff over to California from Pittsburgh. We'd only known each other for 2 months when I moved away. And 6 months later, he had sold everything, left his business behind, and pulled a Goodwill Hunting and just drove across the country to be with me, to start over, to just be together. And it was a good move. We're very happy. But at the time, my husband, he went to Carnegie Mellon as well as a computer scientist, and he was an amazing software engineer, but he had a passion for fitness and health. And so he went back to get his master's degree in exercise science and health promotion. And he really was fascinated with aesthetics. He loved the idea of building the perfect human form, you know, the muscles, the abs, all of that. He just loved it. And at first it was a hobby for himself. And then he realized how much he loved training others and helping them transform, and the confidence it would bring them, and the happiness and joy it would bring them to live in the body that they wanted to. The thing that frustrated him the most was that there was really no science in place for the optimal diet for humans who wanted to have a six-pack. There's high fat, low fat, high carb, low carb, high protein, no protein, fruit, blah, 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 right? And even getting his master's degree with professors who are PhDs in nutrition science and exercise and health had no idea. They had no idea about the perfect diet for humans. And it drove him mad, because as a computer scientist, one of the top computer scientists, I don't know if you all know Carnegie Mellon, but they are the top computer science program in the world. MIT and CMU are always, tied, battling that out. They create programs for NASA. So for him, he has the mind of a computer scientist where everything has a perfect algorithm. And there is an elegant, right, best way to do anything. And in biology, in nutritional science, that doesn't exist, or it didn't before he got his hands on it. And so he thought there must be an optimal way for humans to eat where we can have optimal metabolism, which is what he used to describe a body that, when you exercise, will burn fat effectively, will build muscle effectively. Some people, they exercise, but nothing happens. What's going on there, right? Why are people naturally more skinny and other people not? And so that was his obsession when I met him. And he had done amazing work at that point to create an algorithm for fat loss and muscle building nutrition, where he really focused on the nutrients that the body uses for cellular repair and cellular function, and was using that to help his clients create these amazing results. And he did so well that at the time, MTV was having him come into New York on a regular basis to train people for their music videos. Isn't that cool? So I don't know if MTV is really a thing, but back then it was. Back in 2003, it was a huge deal. In fact, he was on MTV. I don't know if you guys remember TRL, those of you who are, my age or older. But TRL, they had the beach house, MTV Beach House. He was the hottest body at the beach house in 2003. So he was really successful. And so when we decided to get married, I asked him if he would train me for our wedding, because I thought the coolest thing would be, I want to look like an MTV star at my wedding, right? So I asked him to train me. Now, at the time, his protocol included tons of vegetables and omega-3 fatty acids and water and all the things I'll be teaching you about. But it also still included meat, although it was only free-range meat. It's very much what paleo became, actually, but predating those terms. And although a much higher nutrient version of it. But I had been a vegetarian since I was a kid. I actually read John Robbins' book, Diet for a New America. My whole family did, and I was a vegetarian. But I ate tons of junk food. I ate eggs and cheese all day long, as well as processed stuff like Doritos and all those things. So I was a very unhealthy vegetarian. But I refused to eat the meat component of his plan. And so because we met, he had to create a vegan version of it. I thought it was vegetarian because I didn't even really understand what vegan was back then, but we took out the meat and dairy, and that's what it was. And what happened was it worked great. So this was me before we started. And so listen, I wasn't obese, but I did like to exercise every day. And that's just me with one of my buddies there. But I love to exercise, but it really didn't show much. I didn't, have muscles or anything. I was soft. And I wanted to look really ripped for a wedding. So I followed the program he made for me. I was the first person he ever trained without any kind of meat. Instead, we just used soybeans or tofu. And what happens is in 3 months, I completely transformed. I went from a size 11 to a size 3. And here's what we looked at like at our wedding. So I know he was amazing too. Like the man was like sculpted with a chisel. But we had an amazing time. And not only did I look great, and we had a beautiful, beautiful wedding, but it was the first time in my life that I had no joint pain. I had no migraines. I had incredible energy. I was an intern working 30-hour shifts, and I could go to the gym after a shift and feel fine. And we couldn't really understand exactly why that was happening. My chairman of my department even was worried I could have mania because he'd never seen an intern so happy and energetic. All the rest of them were depressed and moody. And I said, no, I'm just so grateful to be here and live and have my dream job. And I don't know that he was convinced I wasn't manic, but they let me do my thing. And I actually became the first solo chief resident at that department because I could do 2 people's jobs. But at the time we went and got married. And right before we left for our wedding, I went to see a new doctor there. And I had started out with one rheumatologist, but he had to retire. And so I went to a new rheumatologist, and they ran all my tests. And he called me right before the wedding. He said, I'm going to need you to retake these tests when you come back from your wedding because something happened. There was a mistake in the lab because these tests are actually negative for lupus. And I know you've had lupus for 12 years of your life. And I've seen your previous charts. So go enjoy your wedding. Don't worry about it. Come back. We'll retest everything. I said, okay. So we came back and we retested everything, and it was still negative. And we didn't know why the heck that was, because lupus doesn't go away spontaneously like that. And even when I was in remissions before, and I'll say that with air quotes, remissions, I still took medicines every day. I took COX-2 inhibitors like Vioxx or Celebrex for my joint pain. I took medications for my migraines. I was always on something. I was taking, my blood thinners every day for the blood clots. And so there was never a time when my labs were negative. They always showed I had a disease. I was just considered in remission because I was easily able to manage it without needing things like chemotherapy, right? My kidneys were stable. So we didn't know if it's a wedding gift or what, I don't know. But I was just happy, and I kept eating that way because I never felt so good, and I just didn't want to change anything. And after 4 years, I never had a relapse. We did something pretty amazing. Now, let me say, even after a year, it took me a year of being in remission with normal labs. And we kept taking the labs every month, and they were just negative. After a year of that, I convinced my doctor to stop my medications. I said, listen, I don't want to die. So if anything goes wrong, I'm coming right back. But why am I injecting myself every day when there's no sign of my blood clots? Because I have the kind of blood clots caused by antibodies, and my antibodies were negative. So I said, I don't want to keep taking these if I don't need them, but I'll come back if I do. And then after a year, he said, you know what? Please don't come back. There's no reason. So I got fired by my rheumatologist, which is the coolest thing that I wish on all of you. I got fired by my rheumatologist because I was too healthy. And after another 3 years of no medications and health, we decided that, well, I decided, my husband was terrified, that I wanted to do something that we're told I couldn't. And we got pregnant. And I felt amazing. My my OBGYN was so scared when I told her that I used to have lupus. She goes, "You don't used to have lupus, you have lupus. Oh my God." She sent me to a high-risk OB. The high-risk OB said that I was fine. They said, "This woman's completely healthy. We're not following her." So they sent me back. And my OB wanted to put me on medications. And I said, "I don't want to take medications if I'm not sick, but I'm happy to take the test." So we looked at the tests. Listen, I have some before and after. So 2004, right before I changed my diet, these are the blood clot antibodies and the lupus antibodies, and they're positive. But here I am pregnant in 2008, and these are my blood clot antibodies. Look, negative, negative, negative. So why am I going to take a blood thinner? I decided not to. Some of my clients who've reversed the same thing have decided to take the blood thinners just in case. I think that's all right, but that's what I did. I tracked it, and as long as I didn't have problems, I didn't want to take anything. 2004, there's my positive ANA. But 2008, here's my negative ANA. So I decided to just coast through without those medications, and it worked out beautifully. There's my little Solomon when he was born, my perfect little angel. I don't know if you can see he's wet there, but I just cried on him for like days. So I couldn't look at him without just sobbing. But it was an amazing experience. And even though I needed a C-section because he was breech, he was butt first, and there was no way he was turning around. I was up walking around same day and just feeling so good. And my husband's theory of metabolism worked, because 9 days later, I fit into my skinny jeans that I wore. This is me 9 days after I gave birth, back in my skinny jeans. It was my birthday. And so it was an incredible experience for me. And my husband was like, "Yes, I have proof of my metabolism theory." And he was very excited. He did this whole photo shoot to show off front, back, everything. But I've been so blessed to have a beautiful family. We had another child, Alex, my beautiful boy. And, you know, this has been the best part of getting healthy, has been to live in a way that I didn't know I could. And to experience love and motherhood has been the greatest joy of my life. Sorry, still get choked up with gratitude. But the best part after that of me being able to live these things has been able to give it to others, because it didn't just work for me. It wasn't that God blessed me in my marriage. That would, if it was that, the only thing that could heal you would be Thomas's love. I would have to rent him out, and that would be difficult because we'd miss him. But it's not the case. What happened was we went back and started studying this because we realized that this was something we had to share with the world. It couldn't be something that we just had for ourselves. And my husband and I are both scientists, and we kept studying until we figured out what we believed to be the components of my diet that actually created this rapid amount of cellular repair. Because even my kidneys completely healed. I do not have protein in my urine anymore, and my kidney function is perfect. And it has now been, well, in October, it will be 20 years that I've been lupus free without a relapse. 20 years with no relapse. You want to call that a remission? I hope all of you have a remission as good as mine. Yes. So after we thought we figured it out, we started testing it for free. I gave a talk for the Lupus Foundation and offered to just put people on my diet. And only when we had shown we could get the same results for everyone, regardless of their diagnosis, we came out with my first book, Goodbye Lupus, to give the world my protocol. And we've had amazing success in so many different things. I'll give you a quick show of some people. This is Julie. She did something called my 4-week rapid recovery program. I have realized that there are some folks who can't run with information and need me to hold their hand. And boy, do I love holding people's hand. And so I have rapid recovery where I work with people every day. And my private program is 4 weeks where you get unlimited access to talk to me, Zoom with me, FaceTime, texting, whatever it takes to get you well. And so Julie did this. She had mixed connective tissue disease. She had 2 kids that she could not keep up with. She was exhausted and in pain. She had tried so many different things, invested so much money, could barely move. Well, at the end of 4 weeks, she felt amazing. She said she had Dr. G energy, and she's actually opened 2 businesses since then and has been feeling amazing. And she came to me to fix this connective tissue disease, which is autoimmune. But at the same time, she also had low thyroid, but she didn't have low thyroid anymore once she did my test. Now, anyone who works with me, I give you my cell phone so you can keep me in the loop and I can follow what's going on with you. And she sent me this text message. My doctor, didn't you used to be hypothyroid? Laughing emojis. And Yes, I do text the way I talk, so I was very excited for her. This is Maria, who followed on her own after watching a lecture like this one, and she said goodbye to Graves' disease. I've helped a lot of people reverse Graves' disease. David is always special in my heart. David has been featured in documentaries too, and he was my first telemedicine patient. He had lupus, Sjogren's, and Scleroderma. This on the left is the best he looked on medication. This is medication alone. And this man had been in the ICU so many times where they thought he would die. And this is in 2 weeks after going on my nutrition plan. His skin healed completely. This one's a difficult slide to look at. And if you're squeamish, maybe look away. But this is what Scleroderma does to people. It makes the skin so hard that if you bend the joint, the skin breaks open and can't heal. And he would get infections down to his bone that were so painful that he couldn't even close his own buttons on his shirt. And when he went to the doctor, again, this is the best medication could do. The doctors wanted to amputate his fingers as the only solution. And this is him after doing my nutrition protocol. And this is a healthy man. He has been off of his medications now for, gosh, I'm trying to think of how long it's been, maybe 12 years now, off all medication, doing well. He went from just being alone in his home because nobody could even look at him comfortably. Nobody would hire him because he was so difficult to look at between his hands and his face. He got a job working for a nonprofit, helping young adults. And you know how they wanted to amputate those fingers? Instead, he makes three-dimensional art, and he's won art competitions in galleries in Los Angeles. He's an incredible soul. I'm still in touch with him and his mom. His mom says she carries my book, Goodbye Lupus, in her purse, along with her son's before and after photos. Glenda wants to make sure that everybody gets the information. He got a job, and they call him the rabbit and gave him carrots on his birthday instead of a cake. Love David. A lot of nurses and doctors come to me. So Nurse Peggy did my rapid recovery group for RA, and look on the left side how swollen, look here how swollen her wrist is. This is excruciatingly painful. She could not move this wrist. She could not bend this wrist. And this is her after 6 weeks in my group, able to fully use her wrist in a normal way. This is nutrition. This is, oh, let me see. Here we go. This woman at 70 years old, reversed lupus and her antiphospholipid antibody, which is that blood clot antibody. And look at her glow. Everybody gets that nice skin glow after working with you, right? Tell me she does not look younger. This is 70. Look at the difference here on how healthy she looks. This woman, I'd never met her. She followed my online classes and sent me these pictures over email before and after. No medication, just using my nutrition protocol for, this is a type of skin lupus. Mariana did my rapid recovery group for neuropsych lupus. So neuro lupus, the lupus caused seizures in her brain. She would drop and fall, had to move back home with her family. This is a lupus antibody. This is her on medication. The lupus antibody over 3,000. This is her after rapid recovery. She did my group twice to just make sure it was negative. This is first round of the group, second round of the group. This is what nutrition does. Her seizure stopped after 3 weeks in my group, but she stayed with us just to lock it in and was able to leave and go travel the world again with her boyfriend. This is someone who did my group who had dermatomyositis, another autoimmune disease, and had inflammation in her eyes for 9.5 years. The eye inflammation was gone after my 6-week rapid recovery group. Her doctors were so much in shock. Her liver enzymes also elevated for almost 10 years, normal. This is after 6 weeks again. And she sent me a message that her doctor, who's been caring for her since she was 18, wanted to get my information to have me do a grand rounds for the hospital. This is someone who read my book, Goodbye Autoimmune Disease, and decided to heal her MS. Does this look like someone with MS to you? That's what it looks like when you get on the protocol. The cool thing about MS in my program is not only do people feel better, we've proven that it can reverse the lesions on the MRI. We have had multiple people get their MRIs retaken after rapid recovery and found that the previous lesions are not there, as well as no new lesions, which is really remarkable. That's going to be one of the next ones we try to publish. It's very hard for me to publish because from morning till night, I'm taking care of people. If I'm not taking care of people, I'm giving a lecture like this to try to help more people take care of themselves. Another person, this is a retired teacher, told she'd never walk again. And this is her literally in week 6 of my group. She made a video showing us her walking skills. Jackie, oh, Jackie, my grandmother, all she wanted to do was take care of her grandkid, but she could barely move. Her hands hurt so much. Her feet were so bad she couldn't walk on them. And this was her in the group in the final meeting with her husband. He was in tears. showing off how she can hold a pen. You don't realize how much it means to hold a pen until you can't do it anymore. In 6 weeks, no more pain in her hands, can make a fist for the first time in 2 years, held her granddaughter for the first time with no pain. Oh my gosh. Tennis shoes without blisters, no more mouth sores, more mobility. And there she is jumping on the trampoline with her granddaughter. And this was just an update she put into our Smoothie Shred group in our Facebook community, that she was weaning off of her medication, and now she can climb a ladder and jump on a trampoline, and just was feeling so happy. Lupus free update. I want all of you to have updates like this. Doctors, when they get sick and don't know what they have, they come to me too. This doctor couldn't walk without steroids and no one could figure out what was wrong with her. She read my book, Goodbye Lupus, made an appointment and said, if you can help me walk without steroids, I'll give all your books as required reading to my residents. Well, it worked. She got off her steroids and I made sure she followed up on that promise. I have also helped children. This young child almost died from lupus in her heart and her kidneys. It was really, really scary. And she was a co-blue. They had to bring her back and her mom put her on my program. She healed quickly. As I said, everybody gets to text me. Her heart came back to normal. Her kidneys were back to normal actually in 2 weeks. She started doing martial arts. She wants to be a kidney doctor when she grows up, straight A student. And she doesn't let me show her picture anymore because teenagers, but she has been remained healthy and lupus free for years. That was her in the hospital and that was her healthy, but you know, I can't, that's all I'm allowed to show now. But I've had a lot of experience working with young children and they heal so quickly. Nowadays, I've seen kids as young as 2 years old with lupus and they're eating hot dogs and macaroni and cheese, you know. It also works consistently for HPV and reverses cervical dysplasia effectively, giving people their first normal pap smears they've had in years. This is a YouTuber who tried my program and reversed her endometriosis. It's also reversed fibroids. Man, Freddie, I met at the gym, retired cop who reversed his food allergies and his high blood pressure. It's great for eyes. This is Bernard, who in his 70s did my rapid recovery group and at week 5 no longer had glaucoma. Everyone who's done our group for glaucoma has reversed it successfully. And that's been wonderful. It's also amazing for other eye diseases like uveitis. We've had mobile folks with different kinds of uveitis, like birdshot uveitis, complete remission. And that has no other treatment besides injections of steroids in the eyes, which then cause cataracts and other issues, but it doesn't stop it. And there's an ophthalmologist who just presented at a conference, his patients with birdshot uveitis who are on my protocol, who all went into remission when none of the other ones had. Peripheral neuropathies from chemotherapy and other diseases have gone into remission. This is the most recent one I just posted on my Instagram, 6 weeks. And Diane, who's had awful neuropathies for years, burning feet, keeping her awake all the way through all of these years. And they were completely gone by halfway all through the group. Her labs were amazing. There's another person just finished my group for fibromyalgia, who's feeling amazing. Look at those glowing smiles. And before I get to details of the protocol, I want to tell you a story that I think locks in the power of what I want you to all understand. This is Rachel. Rachel came to me pregnant with lupus and Sjogren's. Now, Rachel has been pregnant with this disease multiple times before. She had one successful pregnancy and ended up extremely sick afterwards. Pregnancy is very dangerous for people with lupus. Her second pregnancy ended in miscarriage and made her so sick she had to stay in the hospital afterwards. And so when she got pregnant this time, she was terrified that the baby would go home without her. Because she was already so sick from the lupus that she had to start her maternity leave early because she couldn't get out of bed. She was in so much pain and so exhausted. So she found my book and we did the 4-week rapid recovery program and finished the program a few days before she had a scheduled C-section. 3 days before a scheduled C-section, she was running through the park teaching her 3-year-old how to fly a kite. She felt so good. All of her pain was gone. Her energy was through the roof. She had a successful surgery. Baby was born healthy, and she was in full remission from the lupus and Sjogren's, went home healthy, and she's never had a relapse now, and it's been 8 years. There she is with her baby. That was her lupus rash before, and if she ever went in the sun, here she is doing a photo shoot in the sun. She does not get that rash anymore. So that would be amazing enough, right? However, I have seen more people in her family. After she got well, I got a call from her saying that her mother-in-law was in the hospital with end-stage heart failure. She had just had a heart attack, and her doctor said it was a fatal heart attack, and that her husband had to come back to Israel to say goodbye to her. So the husband had just witnessed his wife spontaneously recover from a deadly disease he'd been watching her suffer from for years with green smoothies, which I'll show you how to make. And so he took the blender to Israel and he said, you know what? Maybe this can help my mom. She doesn't have autoimmune, but I'm not going to just go and say goodbye. So he brought it there. Now, this is what his mom looked like, Pearl. Pearl was 68, type 2 diabetes, very high cholesterol meds. She'd had 25 heart attacks since the age of 41, 25 heart attacks. She'd had 3 bypass surgeries and 10 stents, okay? Now, she had had heart failure for over 2 years. And this was 2017 when she'd had what they said her final heart attack, where she was too sick to heal. Well, her husband, Nir, brought the blender and just gave his mother my smoothies. That's it. He said, just drink these, Mom. And in 5 days, she walked out of the hospital. And not only that, 1 year later, not only was she still alive, she was off her cholesterol medals, her blood sugars were stable, no more chest pain, and she looked like this. That's 1 year later. And this was 2018. Well, this is a new picture of her today. She is still alive 7 years later, fit and healthy, and her heart is healthy too, all because of my hyper-nourishment protocol. So what's really cool to understand is that this protocol is not specific to autoimmune diseases. It is specific to cellular repair. That's the science that I have really come to master, is how nutrition affects cellular repair and immune function. And that means if you have damaged cells anywhere in your heart, in your kidney, in your lungs, in your brain, that we're providing the nutrition your body uses to repair it. And it also means it's good for anyone, not just people with autoimmune disease. Then I get a call from Nir, the husband. He's got diabetes and fatty liver. I said, Nir, what's going on? Look at him. He looks like he's going to have the next baby. Here's his wife after having a baby, looking amazing. And what's going on here, Nir? And he was so stressed out between his wife and his mom that he was junk food eating for stress. And so he came to see me and we had to have a talk. And I told him, Nir, listen to me. Your wife is okay. Your mom is okay. But now they need you. You've got to do something to get better. And he said, okay, I'm going to do it. I said, your family needs you. Your family needs you. It's time. So he listened to me. Here he is 3 weeks later already. I feel like a new person, working out 3 days a week, spending more time on me and my family, sleeping at night, talking to the therapist, or looking for a therapist. I encouraged him to have that. Reduced his medication by half already for diabetes because his blood sugars were dropping so quickly. Already had lost some weight. 1 month. Fatty liver disease gone. And I find that consistently to be true. A lot of folks I see have had fatty liver disease. No one knows why for years. Usually 3 to 4 weeks their liver is normal. Liver heals fast. And here's his A1C in 6 weeks. A1C is considered pre-diabetic at 5.7 and diabetes at 6 or higher. And your A1C tells you your average glucose over 3 months. So for his A1C to be at 4.8 after only 6 weeks shows he had had perfect blood sugar for those 6 weeks. So diabetes completely gone. And what I love about this, right, is here he is, by the way, looking great, healthy with his beautiful children, is that these children right here, these are their beautiful children. And they just had this one during the pandemic, look at this gorgeous kid, is that these children have the genes for diabetes, heart disease, heart failure, lupus, Sjogren's, and probably more. But the diseases stop here because these children will never be sick that way because they are on a nutrition plan, a hyper-nourishing plant-based diet. The same diet that healed their family will make sure that they don't get sick to begin with. And so for any of you who are struggling with the idea of doing what it takes to get yourself well, remember, it's not just for you, but it's for them. This generation right now are the sickest generation of kids ever. These kids are getting what we used to call adult onset diabetes. We renamed it type 2 diabetes because children are obese and diabetic. Children are getting cancer. Children are getting autoimmune diseases because they are on the worst diets in modern history. And so now, instead of every generation living longer, we're going to see that reverse. These kids are not going to get to live as long as their parents. Not these right here, but their generation. And we've got to do something to stop it. And I implore all of you to consider that you're not just doing this for you, but you're doing it for them. Now, I have gotten to do some publishing. As I said, it's hard for me to do because I spend all my time working with the people, but I have done some publishing. I did publish this one on getting someone off of the kidney transplant list. In 6 weeks, we doubled her kidney function in my rapid recovery group. And I did get a shout out from the editor-in-chief, Dr. Kim Williams, because while most of the time their journal gets 5,000 views or so, mine is the only article that got almost 50,000 views. So people are reading that. We just published another case series of showing multiple women with lupus and Sjogren's disease who all were symptom-free within 2 to 6 weeks. And all of them continued to be symptom-free for years out, for 2 years, 4 years, 8 years out, continue to be symptom-free. All of them were taken off their medication by their own doctors within a year of doing my program and remained symptom-free all those years afterwards. And Frontiers is one of the most downloaded journals in the world. So it was very important to us. It took us 3 years to get it published, because I wasn't willing to publish it in some journal nobody's ever heard of. I don't want to publish just to say I'm published. I wanted to publish in a journal that people read, especially that doctors read. And doctors read and download Frontiers at a higher rate than almost any other journal out there. And what's really cool is what they have found is in Frontiers, my article has more views than 98% of all other Frontier articles, which means doctors are reading and downloading it at a higher rate than almost any other article in their journal anywhere, which is just profoundly incredible for me, because that's my greatest goal, is to change the medical world, and it's happening. So I'm very excited to see that. I've also gotten some attention. There's my husband. I fit over 40, which I always joke is really, you look good for your age. I've been in movies. Maybe you've seen some of the movies. I've been on Home and Family Show. I'm always on the local news here in Texas. And I love it when they give me calls to talk about health and nutrition. I'm also a professor for autoimmune disease in T. Colin Campbell's eCornell course. I'm also the only plant-based doctor on the Forbes Health Advisory Board, so I get to edit articles on health for Forbes. And anytime I'm editing an article, I make sure they include nutrition research as part of whatever that health issue is that they're talking about. And most recently, we were featured in People magazine, which is so wild. But what it tells me, and like I said, I actually never had an interest in being a public person. I wanted to just quietly treat the homeless and have a quiet life. I did. But what makes me happy about this is that it's reaching people. It's reaching the mainstream, not just those of you who've heard about this conference, but those of you who are just maybe checking out People online, and learning that there's hope, and that there's another way. And that's so meaningful for me. It's worth it to work these hours to be able to keep bringing this message to the world. It has been shown that diet is the key link between the rise and spread of autoimmune disease. I was on the news talking about how in the Crick Institute in London, they were doing, genetic researchers were trying to discover what changes must have happened in genetics to make autoimmune disease rise so much over the past 40 years. And not only rise in rates, but spread to areas of the world where we never saw autoimmune disease before. And instead of finding changes in our DNA, what they found is the rise and spread of autoimmune disease exactly mirrors the rise and spread of the Western diet. We've also found that autoimmune disease, or not autoimmune disease, but COVID is affected by diet. So back when COVID first hit and we had no treatments, they were starting to look at diet. And what they found is that diet, especially if you're on any kind of plant-based diet, we do a lot of talking this weekend. It reduced your odds of having moderate to severe COVID by 73%, which is very, very significant. Think about it this way: if a medication reduces your symptoms by even a few percentage points, that's considered profound. But plant-based diets were linked to 73% lower odds of COVID-19 moderate to severe cases. That was a really big deal. And this one study was looking at almost 3,000 healthcare workers on the front lines. And what I think was really interesting too, was that they found that people who were on a pescatarian diet also had a better outcome than regular diet. But look at the difference. Only a 59% protection versus 73. A lot of people think fish is good for you. No, fish actually reduced how much protection you got. And people who are on a low carb, high protein diet, like a keto diet, actually had almost a 50% higher chance of moderate to severe COVID. These people think they're so healthy because they're looking lean and mean, and it does create nice lean muscle tissue while it creates higher rates of cancer and heart disease, but also cause much higher rate of death from COVID. So you could have a 73% lower risk or a 48% higher risk, depending on if you're a plant-based or a meat-based diet. The conclusion they made was that a diet rich in nutrients, because there are no nutrients in meat, must be protective, which is true, but they did forget to mention the deleterious effects of meat, which is what stood out to me most, because this right here showed that any meat, including fish, lowered your protection of your immune system, which is what I found treating people from autoimmune diseases for all this time. Harvard study also found healthy plant foods lowered risk. Another study in Brazil also found the plant-based diets lowered your risk. This they always have me on the news, although this was a coincidence. They wore smoothie green to interview me that day. Is that John Hopkins research has shown that there's ingredients in cruciferous vegetables, specifically cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, have an ingredient called sulforaphane. It's just one of the amazing ingredients that you can find in plant foods that itself prevents COVID from being able to replicate. So sulforaphane actually blocks viral activity. And not only does it block it in COVID, but it's also been found to block it in the cold virus, flu virus, and even things like dengue. So it's really amazing how just this one ingredient found in cruciferous vegetables actually helps your immune system, because if you can block the virus from replicating, it gives your immune system time to catch up and kill it, right? And it decreased viral load in the lungs. It decreased inflammation in the lungs and protected them from that hyperactive immune response that caused, that cytokine storm that you usually hear about, that caused all of those really awful effects from COVID, including long COVID. Also, that same group found that sulforaphane in broccoli and other cruciferous vegetables actually stops cancer from growing. So it stops the growth of cancer, so cell cycle arrest, reduces cell proliferation, again, different types of growth, induced cell death of cancer cells. This is your immune system is what's supposed to get rid of cancer. It's supposed to find it and kill it. But when your immune system's not working properly, not only with autoimmune, but because you're on a diet that's really inflammatory and blocking its effects, and you're not eating enough cruciferous vegetables, you're going to have more cancer as well. Reduced susceptibility to carcinogens, meaning you can get exposed to carcinogens. Everyone's so scared of microplastics and pollution, but if you are eating the right foods, then you're not going to be as susceptible to getting cancer from those things. Oh my gosh, broccoli's looking good, isn't it? So I've also had people with long COVID who usually respond very quickly. Usually within 3 weeks, their symptoms go away and they've been sick for years. So what we understand is that a healthy immune system can reverse disease. It can fight disease, and it can help you recover from disease, right? Chronic disease is man-made. You don't see animals in nature limping around with arthritis. The only animals that get diabetes and arthritis are the ones that humans raise, dogs and cats, right? When you're eating the right diet, your immune system functions and you can get sick and recover. You cannot get sick to begin with. And if you already were eating the wrong way before, you can reverse that disease process. So how do you do it? My book, Goodbye Lupus, I talk about the 6 steps to healing with supermarket foods. And the first 3 steps are all about eliminating inflammatory foods. Now, I know if you're watching this conference, you've already heard what those are, right? I can almost hear you shout them with me, right? Animal products, processed foods, oils. Now, there's a caveat to the oils, but most oils, all right? Including vegetable oils and, of course, meat oils, saturated fats, etc. These are products that make people sick, and there's many different ways that they do. I know you're getting lectures on things like heart disease and how it clogs up the heart. I'm sure you're getting lectures on cancer and how they are carcinogenic, which they absolutely are. But my passion is for how these ugly things affect your immune system. So in Goodbye Lupus, I actually go through the science of this more deeply. And at the end of this, I'm also going to give you a link to a video series that you can watch for free that will give you a deeper dive into this. I don't have time to do that now, but I'm going to give you a quick overview. This is one of the pathways of your inflammatory immune system, okay? And arachidonic acid, which creates these inflammatory immune cells, and you don't need to remember all this. I want you to just get the concept. But arachidonic acid comes from these items, different kinds of fats from animal products, especially processed foods, which are full of those fats, and any kind of meat or dairy, okay? They are full of arachidonic acid. Now, when you have high amounts of arachidonics in your system, you're going to create more of these enzymes to break it down. These boxes are the enzymes, 5 LOX, COX-1, and COX-2. And when you have more of these enzymes, you're going to make more of these byproducts, leukotriene B4, thromboxane E2, prostaglandin E2. Now, these are inflammatory. And the more of this that you have, the more of this you make, the more of this you make, right? So more of this, 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 more of this. Yes, it works, right? Now, 5 LOX is an enzyme that actually helps with increasing cell growth. Now, when cell growth happens in a normal way, you're fine. But what happens if you have too much cell growth? You're going to have more cancer. And if you have too much leukotriene B4, you're going to get inflammatory bowel disease, asthma, atherosclerosis and heart attacks, chronic inflammation, destruction of healthy tissue, arthritis, edema, and pain. So if you have any of this, there's a good chance you have too much of this, right? Now, by the way, as a doctor, all I learned was how to treat this with medication, right? We have medications that block these things. Like, for example, COX-1. If you have too much COX-1, you can have too many blood clots. If you have too many blood clots, what do you have? Heart attacks and strokes. You know what a COX-1 inhibitor is? Aspirin, right? So you can take aspirin and it can help block this to have thinner blood. It also will give you ulcers, but that's all we know how to do in medicine. And I never learned where this came from in medicine. COX-2. COX-2 is helpful for repairing and improving blood vessel growth, among other things. But if you have too much blood vessel growth, you're going to increase the blood supply to cancer, and they'll have more cancer blood supply. And you can have more things like irritable bowel and inflammatory bowel disease, chronic disease, and pain again. So again, if you have too much of this, you're going to get too much of this. Does that make sense to you? So that gives us a much better answer than chasing these things down with meds. And by the way, don't get mad at doctors for that. Doctors saved my life, and I've saved lives as well, using medications to try to chase down people's bad diets. It's just that we're not taught in medical school that it's the bad diets causing this. All we're taught is learn everything you can to stop this. And right now, I teach doctors at conferences. When they find out there's more they can do, they're always grateful to learn it. But if you can change this, you can take less medications here and you can help yourself here. So what can you do? This is what's missing from a lot of information. It's like, okay, you've told me what not to eat, but what the heck do I eat, right? Well, I teach something about adding nourishment, or really what I call hyper-nourishment. So hyper-nourishment is an overdose in the nutrients that actually help your body repair itself. And if you can overdose in the nutrients your body uses to repair itself, then your body can sink into cellular repair and not just help you with what's going on today, like a virus floating by, but it can heal damage that happened in the past. You have about 100 trillion-ish cells. Having a little bit more fruits and vegetables is not going to change things for you for disease reversal. You need to hyper-nourish to get that kind of result. So number one, you need to focus on raw vegetables. I know people prefer cooked, and they'll even say, I read in a study that you can absorb more of this with cooked vegetables, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you can find things that say many things, right? Just like you can find people who say many things as well. But I only teach what I have found to be true from results, because if you look hard enough, you can find studies that say opposite things. Have you found that? Isn't that annoying? I have now worked with thousands of people around the world, thousands, and many of them watching them every day in rapid recovery. And we've been able to figure out even dosages of what we need to help people actually start changing their health. And what we found is that we don't get the result with the cooked vegetables. We get them with the raw. Research is now caught up to some of the reasons why, which I'll share with you. But what we found is if you can get at least a pound a day, especially cruciferous vegetables, see that broccoli and cauliflower, at least a pound a day, you can start actually accelerating cellular repair in a way where you can experience a change in your symptoms. More is better, but at least a pound a day. Pound a day, keep the doctor away, right? So vegetables, really key. All right, at least a pound a day. Now, why raw? Well, as I said, results mean the most to me, but there have been some studies that have shown some of the reasoning. Remember how I just mentioned sulforaphane and how it's found to be anti-cancer and how it is found to block things like COVID replication? Well, sulforaphane, which is just one little micronutrient in cruciferous vegetables, which have more micronutrients than anything on the planet. That's why if you're going to eat one, eat them, because you don't need to eat a rainbow if you're eating broccoli. It's got all the rainbow inside of it, okay? But sulforaphane, just this one micronutrient, when you give someone 200 grams of raw cooked broccoli, the study showed, the bioavailability, how much sulforaphane ends up in your bloodstream, is 37% when raw, 3% cooked. Look at the difference. You kill the sulforaphane. So if you're eating broccoli and kale so that you can make sure that you don't get cancer or kill cancer cells, and so you can make sure that you can block all those cold viruses, if you're cooking it, you're not getting the protection. They also found that raw broccoli resulted in faster absorption of sulforaphane, higher bioavailability, and higher peak plasma concentrations compared to cooked, dramatically higher. And again, remember how important that was for decreasing the viral load of COVID and other viruses. They've also found that it blocks things like hepatitis C, dengue, right? And again, how it blocks cancer. So just for that one nutrient alone, you want to eat it raw, right? But there's other reasons. They looked at raw kale and prostaglandin E2. Remember prostaglandin E2? So they found that you could significantly reduce prostaglandin E2 from raw kale. That's this one right here. People with irritable bowel disease and inflammatory bowel disease are told to eat low FODMAP diets, low fiber diets, don't eat vegetables, definitely don't eat raw vegetables. Meanwhile, you need that to get rid of the bowel inflammation. We've got to eat these foods. And if you're struggling to eat them because you have bowel issues, I can help you do that. We can figure out how to slowly introduce them until your bowel's strong enough. But just eating kale alone, raw, can make a difference here. Cooking kale significantly reduced vitamin C by 89%. How many of you spending money on a vitamin C supplement? Kale's got incredible amounts of vitamin C unless you cook it. Polyphenols, 56% reduction. Antioxidants, you know how important antioxidants are, right? For cancer and other things, reduced by 38% by cooking. And of course, the clinical results I showed you, the profound changes in people's health. I have so many people who have come to me, doctors, nurses, and customers, like clients and patients in the places where I can be their doctor, that have done regular plant-based diets with cooked food and didn't get the results, or got better, but not all the way. And then they added hyper-nourishment, and within days to weeks, their symptoms went away. The clinical results are profound. Water intake. Water is ignored by physicians, I don't hear anyone talking about it in their protocols at all. It is a critical thing for maintaining your function of your cells in your body. Even mild dehydration has dramatic effects on your ability to exercise, your wellness, your brain function. But it's also dehydration is the leading cause of headache, constipation, and low energy. That trifecta, like most Americans complain about that, and they're spending tons of money on headache medication and laxatives and energy drinks, and they're just dehydrated. Water consumption is also associated with your metabolic rate, how well you burn fat. So if you're on that treadmill running away and you're not burning fat and you think you're eating healthy, you might just be dehydrated. It actually increases fat oxidation to drink water. I know you're all sipping water right now because I give this talk all the time, and I always see the entire room pick up their water bottle at the same time when I'm teaching this. And dehydration causes damage to your cellular membranes and increased cell death. So when we're trying to help people heal, we recommend at least 96 ounces of water a day, unless you have reasons you can't. If you have heart failure or kidney failure and your doctor has you on water restriction, please listen to that. You also do need to consume sodium. I know people hear terrible things about sodium. That's because most people are severely dehydrated. But when you are hydrating yourself, sodium is an electrolyte. And if you drown out that electrolyte, at best, you're going to pee most of the water out. Now, at worst, you can get yourself really dizzy and lightheaded or pass out. So please make sure you get at least a teaspoon of salt a day while you're getting your high amounts of water in. But most people go with a full gallon a day. I usually do. The benefits are amazing. I made these slides. What I'm showing you right now is my medical keynote that I made for Kaiser Permanente's wellness retreat. But I really find it important for doctors to understand the benefits of water, because most people just don't drink enough of it. But it helps with things like kidney stones, UTIs, high blood pressure, blood clots, fatal coronary disease, strokes, dental disease. A lot of people don't realize how much the health of your gums and your teeth rely on your hydration. Diabetes, gallstones, mitral valve prolapse, glaucoma, and is indicated as being one of the causes of exercise-induced asthma and even cystic fibrosis. You need water. You don't need some special tea that grows in a rainforest. You need to drink your water, okay? And finally, the other thing that you need is omega-3 fatty acids. This is where fats come to save the day. And I have fought hard. And thankfully, I think I've been successful. When I first was teaching this in the plant-based movement, they were saying, no fat, no fat, no fat. Fats are bad for you. It's just not true. I've heard that too much fat's bad for heart disease. I've heard too much fat is bad for that. It'll make you fat, that any fat that you eat becomes body fat. And it is 100% not true. And we know because we've tested this. There are certain fats you need. And omega-3s are it, all right? Omega-3s, you cannot make them. So you can only get them by eating them. And the highest plant-based source of omega-3s that you can get are flax and chia, unless you're out there eating algae off of the seafloor. This is cheap and easy way to get it. And it works, all right? So this is a good fat. And this is my favorite way. It is important for so many things. And so I'm so happy now to hear the other plant-based doctors catch up and start to say to eat these. Now, a lot of them are still scared, so they'll say like, have a tablespoon. We've tested mega doses, thousands of calories of omega-3 fatty acids, and the only thing we've had is faster recovery and faster fat loss, and with no upper limit. So they are not to be feared. What they do, one is they integrate into your cellular membranes and improve cellular communication and cellular function. So for example, when you do not have enough omega-3s, your body will use something else because our bodies are designed to survive. And so just like, I don't know if you've ever played with Legos. My son Solomon was obsessed with Legos. And if he couldn't find a piece, he would just panic. And I would say, hey, what about, you could just use this piece, this will fit. And he'd get mad at me because it wasn't right. And I'd always say, hey, perfection's the enemy of done, man. Let's just use this and keep building. And it works, right? But if you replace too many pieces with the wrong piece, eventually you don't get the right project. Well, your body does the same thing. So if you don't have enough omega-3s, it'll usually use omega-6 instead. Now, omega-6 is in everything. It's in nuts and seeds, it's in animal products, it's even in plant foods, and it's very, very available everywhere. So your body will put omega-6 instead, but omega-6 doesn't function as well, and it makes the cell membrane pretty rigid, and it's not able to receive communication as well. So a lot of times the nutrients you're eating can't get into the cell effectively, and the toxins can't get out. And if you are toxic and you can't get nutrients in to fix it, you're going to have more cell death. You're going to have more disease. That makes sense? When you get the omega-3s into your system, then your body immediately sucks those omega-3s in. And that's why a lot of times people will say, hey, my blood test still doesn't show my omega-3s are up. That's because they have found within minutes of consuming omega-3s, they are absorbed into the cell membranes. Because just like Solomon would have with his Lego, you go, oh my God, that's the right piece. And it replaced it. So nutrients will get in, toxins come out. I think this is one of the reasons why people sometimes have a period of what they call detox, where suddenly they're like, ooh, I've been doing this for a week and suddenly I feel more achy and tired. Those are released into the bloodstream and cleared, and then people start feeling really good. So very, very important. It's also important for your brain health and your nervous system. So omega-3 fatty acids are also supposed to be the primary fat in the layer around your neurons. So I've helped people reverse MS. I've also had 2 people with ALS do rapid recovery who both showed benefits of reversing symptoms and moving the clock backwards, which was also amazing. That's another one we're gonna have to write up, as well as things like neuropathies, right? So they are important for building blocks of your healthy neurons, which also is important for your brain, your memory, your mood, cognitive function. There was a study that showed that omega-3 fatty acids alone can act as a mood stabilizer and was beneficial in people with bipolar illness and severe depression, anti-aging for your nervous system, and has been shown to be protective. Just omega-3 alone found improvement in learning, memory, and function in a study on Alzheimer's. But the thing that I love the most, right, is what it does for the immune system. So in the immune system, we create anti-inflammatory immune cells too. So I showed you earlier a slide of omega-6 fatty acids and how they create your inflammatory immune system. Well, there's a very similar chart that we use for understanding what the anti-inflammatory immune system looks like. So this is part of your anti-inflammatory immune system, that's prostaglandin E3 and leukotriene B5. And omega-3 fatty acids provide ALA, which is broken down into what a lot of people have heard of here, EPA and DHA, which is important for different brain health and function, as well as ALA2, which has been studied to show on its own is protective for memory and cognition. So it's important that we get this as well and don't just take something that only has this. And this actually is what brings you down to baseline, right? So when you get sick, you need your anti-inflammatory immune system to repair the damage and bring you back to your baseline, back to normal. That's like when you do construction in your house, after they fix everything, there's a mess. This is what cleans up the mess, right? So what has created our results, and I use this slide because I married a software engineer who then became a health engineer, is that we hack people's health this way through this pathway. That these are the two pathways of your immune system, right? And again, it's more complex, but this is a basic way to understand it, right? Now, here's the LA pathway that leads to the inflammatory immune system. Here's the ALA pathway that leads to the anti-inflammatory. Now, one of the issues that people have is these two products are broken down by the same enzyme, okay, delta-6 desaturase. Now, if any of you have ever heard that if you eat flax and chia, you don't break down enough ALA to get significant amounts of EPA and DHA. It just doesn't work. That's not actually true. The reason that was initially found is because this enzyme prefers this pathway. If you are eating animal fats and processed foods and vegetable oils and things like that that are super high in omega-6, you will take this enzyme this way, because the enzyme will work harder on this side. I don't know why that is. We don't know how to ask, all right? But if you remove this from your diet, then this enzyme will suddenly be extremely available for this pathway, and it works. Boom, right? Now, the other thing that's really cool, and I find this very cool, like to me, this is fun, right? Is that if you increase your levels of EPA and DHA, it also blocks the breakdown of arachidonic acid that I showed you earlier, right here. So not only are you getting more anti-inflammatory prostaglandin and leukotriene, you're blocking the production of these right here. So between the raw kale blocking here, right, and your omega-3 fatty acids blocking here, can you see how suddenly inflammation disappears with hyper-nourishment? How cool is that? You have the power to change this. And how do you do it? Oh, sorry, let's go back here. With beautiful food. Beautiful, beautiful food. These are actually recipes that are in my newest book, Goodbye Lupus, Hello Delicious. And what I love about this book is that every recipe in there either came from me or from my clients who have healed their diseases using these recipes. And as far as I know, it's the only recipe book where every recipe has healed somebody. And I think that's pretty awesome. So this is mine right here, but this is from different members of my group who have made these gorgeous different recipes. And they're all raw and they're easy to make and they're delicious. And look how beautiful and full of life they are. Not everybody gets as excited as I do to see these beautiful raw foods. And that's why we also created the smoothie solution. And the smoothie solution, like we have free smoothie recipes online. We figured out if we can get people to just put the kale, right? And you can add spinach too for some extra nutrients, right? If you can put the greens and the flax and chia seeds and the water into the blender, add some fruit for flavor and blend it up, you can hyper nourish through a straw while you're working and get it all done without even being a chef. How cool is that? So if you go to smoothieshred.com, that is a free public service website that my husband made. We try to give to the public for free as much as we can. I want to save your life. He always jokes, I want to save your wife. But it's very important to us that our miracle is not just ours. So we've done everything we can to make everything we do free to the public. And this is one way. If you go to smoothieshred.com, there's not only videos there from us on how to do all this, including shopping at Costco and how we shop, but there's tons of free recipes. You can take a screenshot of this one right here, but the website has other recipes on how to do it. And if you start adding this to your life, it's going to make a difference in your health, your metabolism, everything. And it's going to make you feel so much better. Practical tips. I'm a practical person. I was raised by immigrants. So was my husband. I think that's the difference, right? We're very practical people who work hard because we're raised, we're immigrant families. Practical tips. If it feels overwhelming to do all the things you're learning, start by adding what you're missing. Even if you're eating a burger after you hear my talk, I didn't inspire you enough. Add the green smoothies, add the salads, add the raw foods. Your body needs it. It'll help you fight those viruses. It'll help you repair damage to your system. It'll help you bring down inflammation. Do it. Number 2, don't wait for New Year's Day or till you finish the junk in your fridge. Just start now. So many people I meet tell me they've just been putting it off and putting it off. I actually just spoke at a conference on Saturday, and quite a few people came up to me afterwards. And I love going to conferences because I get to get the hugs. I'm going to have to just get the virtual hugs from you guys, but I love meeting people in person to get the hugs and hear their stories. And people brought up pictures to show me their before and afters. But some people told me I've been putting this off, but hearing you speak today, today's my start date. And for every single person on this meeting right now, I hope that's true for you too. Just start today. No more excuses. Celebrate every win. This was a picture from me on a Zoom session. My client took a screenshot of me and sent it to me. A lot of people just don't celebrate enough. They always look at what's wrong or what there's left to fix. And if victories feel as good as failures, you're going to lose your motivation. So every single thing you do right, make sure you celebrate it and focus on the big reason why you need to do this. My why is huge. This is us celebrating our 10-year wedding anniversary. We renewed our vows. We put on our wedding clothes again, and the kids were there, and it was really amazing. My why is huge. It's my family. It's my purpose. It's all of you are my purpose. My why is so big that there is nothing out there that could tempt me away from continuing to eat my hyper-nourishing plant-based diet. It just would never happen. You need a why that's big enough that you won't get tempted, right? Sometimes people will say like, oh man, I just couldn't get, that donut just looked too good. And I gave in. And I said, that's because you were thinking about a donut versus a green smoothie instead of a donut versus my kidneys, a donut versus being there for my children, a donut versus being there for my grandchildren, a donut versus being able to travel through Europe instead of laying on the couch. When your dreams are big enough, and in my book, Goodbye Autoimmune Disease, I dive into the mental side, the psychological side. This is what I spend most of my time with my clients with, is making sure that their dreams are solid and big enough that they don't let the cravings get in the way anymore. If your why is big enough, you will do this. And I want that for all of you. So take the time to do that. Find a supportive community. We have a free Facebook group. You can see there's thousands and thousands of people. There are almost 80,000 people in there. It's called Smoothie Shred in Facebook. If you're in Facebook, if you're over 40, and have fun with it. This isn't a punishment. All right. Eating healthy is not a punishment. It's a reward. It leads to the greatest rewards in your life. I know it's led to the greatest rewards of mine. I do love to give a gift every time I speak. So if you enjoyed this 82 minutes and you'd like to have 5 hours of it, I'm going to leave my classes up for free for the next 5 days so that you can sit down and really learn it and you have no excuses not to do it. So take a screenshot real quick there. Okay. And every week on Wednesdays, I come online to coach the public for free. We often have anywhere from 600 to 1,000 people all over the world show up every Wednesday, 2:30 Central Time. That's 12:30 Pacific Time. That's 3:30 Eastern Time. If you're somewhere else in the world, Google. Every Wednesday, I come on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram Live to answer your questions. If I can just give the information for free and coach you for free and you get well, then I'm so happy. And I hope this becomes so viral that you guys just don't need me that much. And I just will find a way to do other things, maybe write another book or maybe just take some vacations. So take a picture of that too, okay? Social media. If you guys are on social media, here I am. So make sure that you're following me there. I try to post every day to keep people motivated and informed on what you need to do to be well. And if you need to reach me, there it is. There's my, that's my email address. That's my cell phone number. I don't answer it because I just can't. It's too many, but I do answer text messages. If you need me, let me know. I'm at Goodbye Lupus on Instagram and Facebook, but I'm here to help every way I can. So if I can be there for you, if I can make a difference in your life, oh, let me see. They wanted me to keep that back up. So let me put that back up real quick. If I can be there for you in any way, I'm happy to. I hope that this talk just inspired you to take action for yourself, for the people who love you, because the world needs you. So thanks for your time. I'm going to open it up to questions for the rest of the time.
Great. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to hear you speak, and it's very inspiring. So that's where they can reach out to you. It's very brave of you to give everybody your cell phone number. And to get your book, where would they go and get your book? Or books?
My books are on Amazon. Okay. Yeah. If you go to Amazon and you look up my name, or you look up Goodbye Lupus, you will find Goodbye Lupus, Goodbye Autoimmune Disease, and my recipe book. My recipe book knocked my own, so they're all three been best sellers, but my recipe book knocked Goodbye Lupus out of first place. Now it's second place. Everyone tells me it was the key of what they needed. Like now they know how to make all their recipes, but yeah, they're all on Amazon, so you can get them there.
Great. Thank you so much. So yeah. I want to ask you a selfish question, which is you're giving away your class for free for 5 days.
Yeah.
A lot of people are watching the conference until the 20th. Is there any chance that you could extend it past the 20th so people could get your free class?
Oof. All right. All right.
Or start the 5 days after the 20th.
Look at you with the negotiating.
Well, I'm not negotiating. I'm pleading.
Okay. I can't say no to pleading. All right. I'm gonna have to put it on my system. Okay. All right.
All right. I greatly appreciate that. So, one of the things that, I sit through all the presentations and we hear all the minutia of health, that I think people get lost a lot in the minutia, and they really ultimately want to know what to do. So it's one of the reasons I appreciate what you talk about, which is really, it simplifies it. One of the things that they'll talk about is supplementation. You have to supplement with this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that. What are your thoughts on supplementation?
I think it's overdone, and I think a lot of it's dangerous. There are a few supplements that everybody needs: B12, D, iodine. Those are essential, and a lot of times that's ignored. But most of the folks I see are taking thousands of dollars in supplements, and then they're wondering why their liver enzymes are high. I actually just did a YouTube video on that recently about how they've had an uptick in liver disease from people taking too many supplements. I find that people don't need to take supplements when I work with them, besides those ones that are essential for all humans, because they're getting what they need from their diet.
So, so B12, that's, I think most vegans or people who eat plant-based are aware of that one. D, does everyone need to supplement with D? And same question for iodine. Everybody
needs to supplement with D. And I've actually, I've been alarmed by some folks that I otherwise thought gave good advice, saying that people should not supplement with D. I have seen people get extremely ill from low D, and not only can it disrupt your sleep, but it also is essential for immune function. And I've had folks who let their D get low, where their antibodies pop back up again, that were lupus free, and their antibodies pop back up. And the only thing that was abnormal was their vitamin D. We added the vitamin D and the antibodies disappeared again. So it really is essential for immune function. And we do not get what we need from 15 minutes of sunlight a day. I don't know where that came from, but it doesn't work. I get sunlight all weekend long, because I figured out, having lived in New York and Pennsylvania and Maryland, and then moved to California, And then finally I found Texas. I love sunlight. My husband calls me a lizard. I will just soak in 100 degrees and read, especially because I wasn't allowed in the sun when I had lupus. So I love the sun. I still needed vitamin D to get my levels up. So it really is important to make sure that your levels are over 40. And that's important. High D, I've not seen cause a problem. When people supplement too much, I'm like, okay, you can save money and cut back, but low is problematic. Just like low B12 can cause issues with your nervous system, but high B12, expensive urine. So, you know, it's something where you can test and find your dosage, the right dosage, but it shouldn't be ignored. Iodine is ignored all the time. And it was an issue that I never saw early on. I've been doing this for a while. And usually just everything got better. I help people reverse Hashimotos, Graves' disease, other autoimmune diseases. But all of a sudden what I started seeing, it was about, trying to remember now, might be more like 6-7 years ago, maybe a little more, that suddenly I started to see people where their TSH, which is a marker for like how hard is your thyroid working, going up when they had no autoimmune disease for their thyroid. I'm like, that's really weird. So as a scientist, I can't help it. I got to dive in and start solving the problem. And what I realized was they were not taking in any iodine. And I thought, well, I never had to supplement it before. Where was it coming from before? Iodized salt. So a long time ago, many decades ago, scientists figured out that there was a human health epidemic around the world, so really a pandemic of low iodine intake causing brain disease and thyroid disease. And so in modern countries, they started putting iodine into salt because everybody used salt, right? Everybody used salt. There was before any of the information came out that maybe you could have too much. So in more recent years, people are either told not to eat salt because of their heart disease, or they started using like Himalayan salt, and you know, they didn't want the caking agents or whatever. And so accidentally it started an epidemic of iodine deficiency. And iodine is the key ingredient that your thyroid uses to make a thyroid hormone. So then I started making sure that people got just the bare minimum of iodine you need is 150 micrograms a day. We all need 150 micrograms a day. So I usually tell people, listen, if you get a teaspoon of iodized salt a day, you've got it. But if you're not getting iodized salt, you have to supplement it. And then that fixed the problem. People with hypothyroid, I actually give them a little bit more, but you have to, there's a sweet spot. You can't have too much or too little. So hypothyroid people should take 300. But some people then overdo it and do dose, and they're getting 3,000 a day, and that could actually poison your thyroid. So yeah, that one I've been trying to speak up about a lot because it was something that that I discovered working with people every day with issues, and it's often being missed by other folks. In fact, a lot of times people's doctors fight back and say, no, you don't supplement with iodine. And I have so many people who got off their thyroid medication just by adding iodine, because it turned out that it wasn't because of autoimmune, it was just iodine deficiency. So make sure that you're checking, and if you're using iodized salt, fine. But if you're not, make sure you're getting it in some other way.
And what are your thoughts on seaweed as a way to get iodine into your diet?
You just have to watch the dosage, as I said. So if you're just eating tons of seaweed every day, you could actually poison yourself from too much iodine. So you have to look at the dosage. If it's a supplement, just read the supplement. It'll tell you how much is in there. But you don't want to get more than, you know, the 150 micrograms a day, or at least average out by the end of the week, no more than that amount. Even, you know, if you have more one day, less another day. So you don't want to overdo it.
Right. How about diseases? And I think you touched a little bit on these, but things like heart disease, cancer, diabetes. How do they do on your protocol?
I actually showed slides on that. You weren't watching my slides?
I know I was.
Where'd you go, Michael? Were you taking a break?
I was. I know. I totally was.
Yeah, it optimizes cellular repair, and it's beneficial in all those diseases.
All right, beautiful. And what about somebody who had MS for years? I know you touched on MS there. Is that for somebody who've had it for 30 years or something like that? Will they see recovery from that?
So it really depends. You can stop progression, and then recovery would based on what is active and inflamed versus scar tissue. So what I often see, if someone's been sick a long time, the most recent symptoms are usually the ones that go away, but something that they've had for 20 years, they usually keep, because that is already scarred over in the brain. That's what I'm saying. When we look at the MRIs, the old lesions are still there, but the most recent one is often gone. So that one was still inflamed, but the omega-3s and nutrition were able to flood in and repair it. But the old ones, a scar is considered healed already. So your body doesn't heal scar tissue. So yes, if someone has old injuries, there's a good chance they'll keep them, but they can stop the progression.
So one of the things that people say about a plant-based diet and something like your
What
protocol.
people?
I'm sorry?
What people?
Those people.
Oh, those people. Okay, what do those people say?
They say it's expensive. How is the budget on this type of protocol?
I don't find it especially expensive. I think if you give up eating the bad stuff, then it's not too expensive to eat the good stuff. I mean, we go to warehouse stores like Costco and get our big 24-ounce bags of greens for cheaper than you can buy even a pound at the store, at supermarkets. You can use farmers markets, Walmart, dollar stores. But, you know, the most expensive stuff people are getting are the meat, eggs. Everyone's complaining about the price of eggs. Guess what? You don't have to buy eggs. And actually, if they weren't government subsidized, meat and dairy would be the most expensive thing in the supermarket. A carton of milk would be like $30, $40 at least. But, you know, our government subsidizes that, pays for it, and then puts the leftovers into the school system. But yeah, I think most people find it's not really more expensive. And even if it was, it's not as expensive as healthcare is, especially in our country. We have to pay for our healthcare here in the US, and expensive both in terms of cost, financial cost, and also life cost. I will spend hands down more money on my food than anything else. You know, I buy my clothes on sale, but I'm gonna make sure I get the food I need. And so I think we do have to prioritize the things that are most essential to our life. And if I don't expect it to cost much more, but even if it did, what else are you going to spend money on that's going to be more important than that?
Sure. How about organic? How important is that?
When I healed from the lupus, I couldn't afford organic produce. So, you know, I think you have to, if you can only afford the regular with the pesticides, get it. As I showed in that slide about the protection you get from eating raw cruciferous vegetables, you saw how it reduced the toxicity or the carcinogenicity of toxins in the environment. So you're more resilient. So I think that's probably why we've seen that even when people can't afford organic, and I've had people on welfare send me messages saying, hey, I healed from my lupus, I'm out of my wheelchair. There's a lady named Kim, you can see her on if you search my social media years back, welfare, watched my classes and read my books, and completely healed, got out of her wheelchair, and she was still able to afford this, and it worked for her, right? So there's always a way. And she couldn't afford organic. I couldn't afford organic when I did it. I was an intern. I couldn't even afford my rent. Thank goodness I had a boyfriend who was Thomas was sending me money to help me meet my rent because I couldn't even afford it. So if it's a choice between no kale or kale with pesticides, eat the kale with pesticides. If you can afford it, go with the organic. I now buy organic when I can, but I know if I have a salad at a restaurant, it's not organic, you know, but I have zero health problems. So the power of the nutrition overpowers the risk of, you know, things like pesticides in my experience.
Great. And you mentioned that, you know, cooking is, you know, destroys a lot of stuff. How much cooking can we have in our diet on this protocol and still be okay, assuming that it's plant-based?
Well, it depends on your goals. So hyper-nourishment is something you can add to any diet. So if you're otherwise pretty healthy, but you're just trying to reverse the aging process and keep that skin glow and keep your organs as young and healthy as possible, you adding that hyper-nourishment every day, like with a blender smoothie, great. And then eat your cooked plant foods. If you're trying to reverse disease and that's not enough, some people it is. Some people are lucky. They eat otherwise plant-based diet, cooked, add the smoothies, and they get the result. But for other folks, like I had this woman, Diana, who follows me online. She had MS and did a plant-based diet, and it dramatically helped, but she still had no vision and still had other issues that would not go away. And within days of adding my smoothies, her vision came back. So for some folks, that does it. And for other folks, they don't get the result till they do the full protocol, which I call the Goodbye Lupus protocol, because I teach the protocol in my book, Goodbye Lupus, and that's my story. And that would be only eating a raw hyper-nourishing diet until remission. and then adding back the cooked foods. I recommend for optimal health that people are high raw, 75% or so. And that's how I maintain my health. As I said, in October, it'll be 20 years that I'm lupus free. And I'm still sitting here drinking my smoothies. That's not a prop. That's my smoothie. I got with my water bottle, right? So I'm always getting my nourishment in every day, and it keeps me peppy and feeling good. I mean, I feel more youthful and energized at 48 than I did at 18. And so usually I do smoothies and salads and stuff. And then at night I have a big salad and then maybe some tofu vegetable soup, or maybe some cooked vegetables or something like that, some beans, or maybe I'll just throw beans on the salad. But I use more the cooked food as a flavor and not so much as the main course. And I find that that really works well for optimal energy and health.
So some people that I've known who've done raw have had the issue of feeling satiated on that. Are there any tricks to feel satiated? I guess if you're eating completely raw, you're not eating legumes, like, cooked legumes anyway.
That problem lasts about 3 weeks for most people. So food addictions take about 4 weeks to get better. And so people don't realize that they're also addicted to cooked food. And it's interesting, we don't know the mechanism yet, the physiology behind that addiction. But I remember I met a man once, he had a magazine. He was in his 70s, and he had a magazine on plant-based health, and he interviewed me. And he told me that he'd been a raw vegan since he was 6, which, can you imagine 70 years ago, a raw vegan like that? I don't think you saw those in the wild too much. But he had really hippie parents, and they even sent raw foods to him in college, like cases of food. And he told me he had never had a food craving, that if he was hungry, he just ate like some kale or an apple or whatever, and he never had a food craving. And in his 30s, he decided, I probably can have some cooked plant foods and still be healthy. And he's right, he had no health issues. And he said he started adding just a little bit of beans or cooked vegetables. And he said from the first day he ate those, he suddenly would get food cravings where he never felt satisfied or full unless he had something cooked from then on, the moment he had cooked food. And he said it was the weirdest thing because he'd never experienced a food craving until he had cooked food. And even though it was still plant-based, no oil, all that kind of stuff, it created that. So I found that really interesting because that's what I see in my clients. There are some people who need to be on that raw protocol. I have now helped many people get off of dialysis, off the kidney transplant list. I've helped people get off the lung transplant list and the liver transplant list. Those folks are not just eating some beans and a little bit of smoothie. Well, I have them fully on the protocol where every bite they eat is for cellular repair. Because for some reason, there are people where cooked food, they're okay with a little bit and others not. And if someone's organs are failing, we don't run the odds. We go with what we know works. And what we find is at the end of week 2, cravings peak. The first week, they're so overwhelmed with like, what do I eat? How do I do this? They're fine. But the end of week 2, cravings peak. And if at the end of week 2, they're not fully healed yet, which most people aren't, their brain does a doozy on them. All I can think about is beans, and I don't feel well yet, and I can't do this. And then they eat something off plan, and then they try again, and then they get stuck in that loop. I just can't feel full, and I have too much cravings if I eat raw. But that's one of the reasons why I do rapid recovery, by the way, is to help people through it. And just now, we just finished the 2nd week, and there are people saying, I've never done it this long before. And then someone else is like, I can't stop thinking about cooked food. I'm like, yep, there it is. There's that food noise. But once they get past the 3rd week, it quiets down. And usually by 4 weeks, they tell me, I can do this forever. It's so easy. I actually wake up craving a smoothie. So it's just temporary. One, you need to eat to fullness, right? Some people say, what do I do if I'm hungry after my smoothie? I'm like, you have more. There's, like, you don't just go, oh, there's my dose, right? You can have more. Fats create satiety. So sometimes when people do raw, they don't do it the way I teach it. They're doing like, there's a program where it's like only 10% fat, and they're just hungry because fat creates your satiety signal. It releases CCK into your bloodstream, cholecystokinin. Cholecystokinin actually goes and tells your brain you're full. So if you have no fat, then, or very little, you never get the signal because CCK isn't released. And so even though your belly is full of food, the brain's like, nope, I think we're still hungry. And that's that lack of satiety. So sometimes just adding a little chia pudding, and then you feel more full, or have that avocado. Avocados, we've found you can have unlimited avocados, and it doesn't prevent people from getting recovery. So a lot of people find that, oh, when I have my avocado or I have my chia pudding, I feel more full, I feel more satiety. But the cravings usually take about 4 weeks to go away. So it's just, you just need the time. Most people just quit before they get there. They do it for a week or 2, and then they go, oh my God, I'm never full, and then they quit.
So a lot of the doctors that that I've had the pleasure of speaking with over the conferences will talk about, oh, cooking's fine and whatever. And they also talk about limiting the amount of avocado, like to a quarter a day, or
It's a shame, isn't it?
or I love avocado. It's a shame. I mean, whether it's
Yeah,
true or
it's
not,
not, yeah,
like
yeah,
I love eating them. So
me too.
and then nuts and seeds. So so if they're raw, if the nuts and seeds are raw, if the avocado is usually raw, um
Yeah, that'd
that's
be gross
fine.
cooking them. Yeah. Mm.
I've
Yeah, so
I've
here's the
seen fried
thing.
avocado, but
Yeah, so
they
I base every recommendation off of results. And
okay.
unfortunately, that's not the case around the board. A lot of time people make their recommendations off of assumptions or off of what someone else they respect said. And when I came to this, it was before the term lifestyle medicine existed. I'd never heard of plant-based doctors. I came at this as a scientist. I didn't know that there was even any movement for nutrition and health. I mean, I'd been sick since I was 16 and I'd taken all the medicines and everything. I didn't know that there was another way. So it wasn't like I sought this out. And when I got better, we figured it out as scientists together to figure out how does nutrition impact cellular repair and cellular function. And it's why when we came out and that we found out there were other plant-based doctors and things, that there was a difference in our protocols. One, the focus on the raw foods, and two, the inclusion of the fats. Like I said, most of them were saying no fats at all. And when I tried to understand where they were coming from, it all came back to some early research that was done where they compared meat-based diets to no-fat plant-based diet. Like, for example, there was a study done, that Dr. Esselstyn talks about, right? Where, he had that group that was in his book where they took people with heart disease and they took all the calories that were from meat and meat fats and they replaced it with just plant foods, and it was all cooked. And there was a dramatic difference in their health and recovery. And so from studies like that, these assumptions grew that all fat was bad. But there was no second step to the study where they said, okay, now let's take the same calories from the animal products and replace it with avocados. Let's do it with chia seeds and see what happens. That was never done. So there were these assumptions made that fats were bad across the board, and then that propagated, and all these other people adopted that ideology, but it wasn't tested. I've tested it. And what I found is that when you add the fats, not only does adherence go up, because man, some creamy avocados makes a big difference, right? And satiety, right? But the results are better. I showed that picture of Pearl. Pearl was supposed to be dead. And in 5 days of hyper-nourishment, she was getting a half a cup of flax or chia seeds a day in that smoothie. She walked out of that hospital and has been heart disease free ever since. And I've talked to other doctors like Dr. Montgomery here in Houston, and he said he gives green smoothies to his patients in the hospital. And it works better than anything else to get them better from when they've had a heart attack. So it's changing, but there are some folks that just stick to that ideology, but it's not tested. And we've tested it. And I've helped people reverse heart failure faster than most people can on any other type of plan using high fats. There have been some studies since then that have shown it. Like there was a study showing that when they did plant-based, they did meat-based versus plant-based with no fat versus plant-based with avocados, and tested cholesterol. And what they found is both the plant-based groups reduced their cholesterol, but the ones eating avocados reduced it by almost twice as much as the no-fat group. So results prove that avocados and other fats like flax and chia seeds actually accelerate people's results in reversing heart disease and reversing autoimmune disease, and don't inhibit them. Now, other fats like saturated fats, those absolutely make people sick. Animal fats, those make people sick. But we have to stop just oversimplifying things. And I think we also have to stop teaching our assumptions and only teach our results, because our assumptions are wrong all the time. We're all people. I assume things that are wrong all the time. That's why I don't teach my assumptions. I teach my results. And at this point, our results are pretty profound. With nuts and seeds in general, they're not bad for you. I eat nuts and seeds as well. When people are trying to fix their omega-3/6 balance, I usually recommend pause on the nuts and seeds while you're just pounding the flax and chia, because nuts and seeds are also a very rich source of omega-6, but they also contain vitamins and minerals and other things in them. So I usually pause them so that we can get the omega-3/6 ratio where we need to be, get the symptoms better. And then, yeah, go ahead and add them back as a snack and you'll be fine for maintenance.
If you want to eat nuts, would walnuts be okay to eat with their omega-3 profile?
Well, they are mostly omega-6.
Okay.
So you want your omega-3 to omega-6 ratio to be somewhere around 9:1 to 1:1, right? And the typical American, when they've done these studies back 20 years ago, they were 40:1, but I've seen people as bad as 200:1. So anything we can do to stop the omega-6 from going up any higher is better. And most nuts are somewhere around the 9:1 ratio. So that's why I say they're fine for maintenance. But if we're trying to fix that ratio, 9:1, 6:3 is still putting you in the wrong direction. So that's why I say, you know, pause it if you have a health issue. But if you don't have a health issue and you want to add some walnuts to your life, that's totally fine.
Should we avoid coconuts due to their saturated fat?
During the healing process, yes, but as health maintenance, I don't see a problem with it.
So I'm sure I know where you're going to fall with this one.
Sure.
We have
Maybe I'll surprise you.
I will be surprised if you surprise me. So Brian Clement talks about fruit feeding cancer and says to avoid fruit. Where do you fall on that?
I haven't seen that fruit specifically can cause or promote cancer. I don't think there's anything carcinogenic about fruit, cancer causing. But I don't think that there's anything in it that's necessarily as effective at reducing it as things like vegetables. So I've actually had people in my rapid recovery programs with cancer, and they do my protocol as I teach it, and they can use fruit, but it's not a big part of the diet. We use fruit for flavor, like to make the smoothie taste good. It's a little bit at the top or a little bit in your chia pudding. And we found their results are great. I've had people who've had visible tumors shrinking, prostate markers come down like somebody hit them with a baseball bat down a hill. So it's been other markers like for ovarian cancer, they just drop immediately. And they're still having some fruit, but it's not a big part of the diet. It's a very small amount of the diet. So I don't find that fruit, I don't see anything, there's nothing about a fruit that's carcinogenic. But I think what he's talking about is cancer, because it grows quickly, it incorporates the sugar in your bloodstream, and that could potentially make it grow faster, right? That's the theory. So I don't think there's any harm in going fruit-free. When I was healing from lupus, I ate no fruit. And I actually just personally don't like fruit. I know I'm really weird, but I don't like sweet things. I'd rather eat broccoli and guacamole all day than have any fruit. And what we found for most people is if they keep fruit to 25% of their diet, their results are really good. But there are some folks who get stuck in their recovery. They hit a plateau, and when we remove fruit, they actually go faster again. And we don't know the mechanism why. And as I said, I don't teach my assumptions or my thoughts. I do have thoughts about why that might be, but we don't know why that's the case. So there is something about fruit that could slow recovery during the healing process. But once people are in maintenance mode and healthy, we lift up the limiters and you can have unlimited fruit. And so my family members love fruit and they pound the fruit every day in addition to their salads and smoothies. For me, I'm not going to snack on it unless it's like it's a summer and it's a peach or something. But I have not found that it increases people's risk of cancer in any way to have unlimited fruit along with all their veggies and everything. The problem for most people is that they're not getting the nutrients they need from the vegetables. We should be primarily on a vegetable diet with fruit here and there, the other way versus the other way around, which is taught a lot. But I mean, even look at the planet, it's mostly green and then, ooh, there's an apple tree. It's not like fruit is everywhere, right? So we really do get most of our nutrition from things like vegetables and especially minerals. Minerals are in soil. And many people, when they were studying, when we were first doing our research, found that most scientists found that people were mineral deficient. Fruits don't have much minerals because they're far away from the soil, but vegetables are full of it right there deep in the soil and close to the soil. So that's the biggest issue I see is people are not getting enough of the vegetables in. And that's the biggest problem they have for their recovery. If you're eating all those cruciferous vegetables and getting all that sulforaphane to fight that cancer, is fruit make much of a difference? Probably not. But again, that would need to be tested to see which one helps people with cancer faster, right?
Right. So this last question, do people ever follow this protocol and not see results when they have these types of issues?
I've never seen someone follow the protocol correctly and not have benefits for their health. Like that's just, you can't give yourself this level of nourishment and not have it impact you. Because again, this nutrition is specific for cellular repair. And we're big bags of cells that need cellular repair. Sometimes it doesn't come in the order people like. So for example, sometimes someone will say, hey, I've been doing this for a month and my wrist still hurts. And then I run their labs and their cholesterol is down 40 points and their kidney function's up 20 points. I'm like, well, your body decided to start here, right? So there's always benefit. And that's why it's just wonderful to do. It's also anti-aging. Water, omega-3s, and cruciferous vegetables actually accelerate cell function so that you can, and I'm not just talking about the aging of the skin, although that's where you can see it, right? You know, that people often will comment on any of my clients, like, wow, you look really young, right? You can see it in the pictures of my clients, right? I'm almost 50 and I love people get that wrong, but it's also the aging of your organs. So your liver, your kidneys, your heart. So you're going to get benefit by doing it. And that's what's so wonderful about it. And I really believe all people should be doing a hyper-nourishing plant-based diet for their health. Just you basically just always have the antidote in your system. Just for the antiviral effects alone. Oh my gosh, we had the worst flu season we've had in recent history, between RSV, COVID, flu virus, all at the same time. Now we got measles, all these, like, keep the antidote in your system that blocks viral replication and keeps your immune system functioning well. There's always going to be a benefit.
Great. Well, that concludes our time. Thank you so much, Dr. Goldner. It was an absolute pleasure once again. If we can unmute the audience.
I bet you it was more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Goldner.
It was really
Dr.
wonderful.
Goldner.
Really appreciate it.
All right.